I'm now getting ready to do the next couple of steps, and this is where the project starts to become a lot more mobile. So I've been prepping all of this kit so far, my planter, to be able to take on vacation. I'm actually going to take a really low-key vacation where it's mainly going to be dog walks and sitting by the ocean. At a rural cabin. So that means that I'm going to have a lot of time to sit and wait for a ferry to be sewing, as well as just in the quiet cabin, or when it's nice outside, to be able to sit out on the porch and do some sewing. And so this is now getting down to what I need to travel with. So the bottom I'm not going to need for a little bit, so that can go off to the side. These two tools are bevelers. It's the number 1 and number 2. These will be used at the very end to clean up this bottom seam, as well as kind of round over any rough edges on the top seam. So again, these ones won't be needed for a long time. I have just a little pair of trim scissors. Really, I'm not going to need these till the end either, because I'll cut my thread. I'll need them then. And then they can get put off to the side. The glue I'm going to need twice. So this is just some contact cement. So I'm going to use it right now. And then once I finish the vertical seam, I'll need it at that point to glue in the miter down here. So that will go off to the glue will get used now, and then it'll go off to the side. And the reason I'm going to start this now, while I'm not on vacation, is so that when I'm sitting in a line for a ferry, I don't have to get out the stinky glue, and instead I will travel with this already glued together right there. And my wife always travels with a foam roller, and so that makes this a nice, comfy, safe spot for me to put this in the car around the foam roller. So that works out really nice. I tend to like to use the 1mm tiger thread sold by Weaver Leather. They have a lot of different thicknesses of thread. It's just what I've kind of landed on and really enjoyed. I've got 2 needles, and I in fact have 2 backup needles just in case something bizarre happens and I lose my needles. What I have here is just a sacrificial block of leather, or of wood with leather coated on it. And I actually made this double thick with leather. I found the easiest way, so the bottom, once that's glued in place, the technique is going to be one hand will be safely held above this, and the other hand with the awl needs to push on through. So this allows me to not stab my hand because I've got all of this in front of it. I have actually packed a second awl blade just in case I bent or broke that. It's not very common for me to do that, but I don't want to be slowed down. I've got some pliers here, and they're smooth. That means that they're not going to rough up the needles. Super helpful as far as being able to, on any of these tighter holes that have been poked, to be able to pull that through. So there's a good sense of what I'm traveling with. Now I'll show myself adding a little bit of contact cement. And I don't need much, so I'm going to spend a lot of time dabbing this off so that I don't end up making a big mess. And I'm just trying to get it on the very edge. Definitely trying to be consistent and definitely trying to get it all wet, but I'm not trying to have so much on there that it's blobbed on. Blobbed on will do 2 things. One, it can become really messy. Not my favorite. Second is that it'll take a lot longer to cure. It needs to kind of stop being liquidy and go to the point that it's sticky. And once it is no longer super liquidy, that's when you can tack it to the other side. So a moment ago I was just trying to get the glue evenly distributed up there, and now I'm I was just trying to get quantity up there, and now I'm trying to evenly distribute it. You can kind of already see that the top section up here is already fairly dry, which is great. And if you're at all sensitive to fumes, 2 things to offer you help with that. One is do this in a very well ventilated space. So outside picnic table is a great option, or in front of a window, or maybe an open garage door. Or 2, wear a respirator. While that's getting a little bit more tacky, I'm going to put the glue off to the side. I'm going to put it up here where I know I'm going to take it with my travel stuff. And then my thread, I'm going to go ahead and measure out how much I need for this whole project. So I'm going to measure the length of the project. And it's that. I don't need to go back up because that's the same as this here. So there is one length of the whole project. That is now 2 lengths of the whole project. And I'm going for 4 to 5 lengths. So there's 2. Then I can flip that over. And here's 4. And I've done this a few times, and I feel like I have plenty long thread. So I'm going to risk it and just try going 4.5. And maybe that's not really risking it because I said do 4 to 5. Now the thread can be put off to the side. To thread the needle is of course your normal, put the end of the thread through the little eye hole. And then about an inch, 1.5 inches away from the edge, you're gonna poke the center of the thread, like so. And you're just gonna come down and capture that. Now we're gonna do it on the far side. Thread the eye, about 1.5 inches to 1 inch up. Poke the center of the thread. Just push the whole needle through. Cinch everything down. Your thread is ready to go. check everything. Yeah, I'm already feeling pretty good about how tacky that is going. So now you want to be very sensitive, very careful that you've only got one real take at this. So when they touch each other, that's where they want to stay. So I want to make sure I get this top edge perfectly lined up. Nice. So at this point, I can start my very first stitch or two that I'll do here. I like to do a few wraps in the beginning. I like to see that nice bold line. And then we want to get this thread in the dead center. There we go. And then you're going to pick one side that's always going to lead with. So I'm going to say this side here is the one that I'm always going to start the stitch with. And I'm going to go with sort of a crisscross stitch. There are several stitches that you can do. This one is going to create some nice X's, which I think kind of look great for this big open space. You can see that I just kind of cinched down the thread. Great. I'm going to still start with this side. Intentionally trying not to split the thread that's already there, so making sure I come out nice and clean. Again, just spending a quick second to tidy up all my threads. like it. Now I'm going to start my crisscrossing. And here is just a personal preference on how much time you want to spend on this. But you can spend a lot of extra time if it matters to you. But here at the very end where I'm going to pull this tight, I can make sure that there are no, making sure that the thread lays perfectly flat without any twist or ravels in it. But if you're a person who likes to move a little quicker on a project, that's not going to matter to you. And again, just snugging it. But I'm also trying to keep this seam nice and flat when I'm snugging it. So I am holding my fingers over it, but not to the point that I can't pull the threads nice and snug. And now on the back side, I'm going to do straight across. So the front will get an X and the back will be straight. Helps to not loop. And I do this plenty in my lap, so you don't have to have a table like this. But the lap does make it a little bit easier to or the table makes it a little bit easier to videotape, that's for sure. So on the inside, I don't worry about trying to make sure everything is laying perfectly flat. Give myself a little free pass there. And by making sure you always start on the same side out here, keeps your stitch looking nice and consistent. So I've got a little twist in there that I'm going to eliminate. And that just simply means that I'm going to pull the thread up a little bit so I can get my finger under there. And then I'm just going to flatten out this part of the thread. Double check it, like it, pull it snug. Looking good. Keep piercing my thread. I think some of that has to do with my eyes are just further back as I'm trying not to be in the way of the camera. If you've done a lot of things with your hands and they don't work so well, those pliers are a really nice saving grace. Back to always starting on this side. I'm going to fully complete this stitch, so finishing out the back, and then I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to do some sewing off camera. Great. So here's a nice. So there we go. You can see the contact cement being a little stretched below the seam that I've already, or below the stitches I've already sewn. But as long as I don't stress that leather, they're going to hold together long enough for me to continue sewing. And you can see what a nice flat joint I'm getting right there. And then we're going to tip inside. And there we go. You can see that I've got the top stitch a few times, so it's much thicker because I went around that spot twice. And then just have each one having the thread cross over each other in opposite directions to get that nice straight stitch down there. I'm making these flat pack kits available to all, so click the link below and find out how you can buy one for yourself or give it as a gift. Definitely make sure to follow along, as I've created a whole video series on step-by-step instructions on how to make these leather planter pots.